All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of this webcast, Fall to Rise. Today's episode is a personal one for me. It's very interesting. It's about a subject that I've been thinking about for pretty much most of my life. The episode is, Am I Black enough? We need to know exactly what it means to be Black in Black America. One of the things that made me think about this is recently Joe Biden was making a speech, and he said, if you vote for Donald Trump, you ain't Black. Which made me think, what exactly does it mean to be Black? Is there a certain playbook? Is there, a certain card with a set number of rules that we have to follow? And if we don't follow these rules or fall into this demographic, we're no longer Black or we've lost our Black card. What exactly does it mean? So what I want to do tonight is I want to get people on from different backgrounds that can explain their own experiences and struggles with being Black. The first guest that we're going to have is Derek Cooper. Those of you that saw our mental health episode should remember him. Everyone's already waving at him. Still popular as ever. Derek, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
We've had conversations before about your issues with Black men.
Yeah.
You've always had issues with Black men due to certain issues from your past. So you've at times dated interracially.
Yeah.
You've hung around other races,
Mm-hmm.
and you've done things that are considered to be non-Black.
Right.
Which then within your family cause people to always say that you're acting white, you're a white boy.
Or don't forget talking white. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I've had that since I was 5 years old.
I'm sorry, you said since you were 5 years old?
Oh yeah, talking white since I was 5 years old. I get that a lot.
Oh wow. Well, what exactly does talking white mean?
So speaking proper, honestly. So growing up, everybody speaks Ebonics where I was from. All my cousins, my siblings, all of them spoke Ebonics for the most part. So with that being said, I was a TV kid. So I listened to a lot of TV. I watched a lot of random shows, and I just picked up how they spoke. And when that happened, this is my voice. So even throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, like, oh, you talk white. You always trying to be like a white boy. And I'm like, not true. I mean, I love my Black culture, but I can't help the way I speak. Like, this is the voice I was given. And I like reading and I like learning about random things. Like when I told somebody I love Greek mythology, I was like, yo, that's that white stuff. I'm like, nah, it's like, people believe this. It's like interesting stuff to learn about. But don't only get me started on music. That was a major one. So I listen to a lot of rock. I listen to a lot of folk music. Don't care for country, but I listen to everything. I'm a universal lover of music. But I've gotten that when I was a kid, like, oh no, you like that white music. So I used to actually hide stuff I used to listen to when I was a kid, and just like whenever I was like people were in the car, I used to hide all my like the Killer CDs or Blink 182 CDs. I used to hide those and just bring out a Jay-Z and all them CDs. Not saying that I don't love Jay-Z and my hip hop, but also like rock. But growing up, especially in the South, like that's considered white. I didn't like sagging. I always hated sagging. Like I never understood it. I was like my grandparents. I don't understand you. Are you sagging? Pull your pants up. So that was another reason people were like, oh, you just act like white. You want to be like the white boys. But I never understood why that correlated to me wanting to be white. And yeah, I liked other races. Like I love hanging out with people of Latin descent because I actually learned Spanish from them. But I was just I was a lover of all cultures and all races. I just wanted to learn more from everyone. But back in those days, it was really hard. It was really hard to be into anything else besides hip hop and R&B.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can definitely imagine. I know that growing up, I lived in a really, really pro-Black household.
Yeah.
Super pro-Black. It was the type of thing where if Roots was on, or this show called Eyes on the Prize, if those were on, you were stopping what you were doing because we had to watch that. Every year you watched it. There was a time where if you listen to certain types of music, that was considered to be white music. Yeah. That's something that a lot of us had to struggle with growing up. I know personally, I like the rock group Queen. A lot of people won't admit to it, but Queen actually made some pretty good music.
Oh yeah, I like Queen.
They made a lot of good songs. But I like Queen. I like hip hop. I like R&B. I love rock music. I love it all except for country. I can't do it. I tried. I can't do country and I can't do folk. I don't know how you do it, but you know,
I don't care for country, but I love me some folk music.
you're better than me.
Yeah.
Now, with people accusing you of acting white, especially within your family, do you feel that you tried to overcompensate
All
and
the
try
time.
and act extra black?
Right. Because y'all know how Facebook would bring up memories or random posts you used to have back in the day.
Mhm.
So I used to look at those posts, and like one was from like 10 years ago, or like even a little bit more than that. And they used to talk, and I spoke in Ebonics, like is instead of is, it was IZ, like little stuff like that. And like I literally forced myself to do that. And I was like, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Like when I was younger, I just wanted everybody else's acceptance, especially in the black community. Like
Mhm.
even though I'm already a black man and I don't need to like justify who I am, in those days I felt like I need to.
In certain ways, I think that we all do. But we shouldn't have to, but we try to justify who we are. So we try to wear the more urban clothes. We try to speak differently, you know. Like for me personally, I was born in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
And when I got to the position that I'm at currently, I would hide my accent.
Right.
I would change the way that I speak. And I think that any one of us that's in that type of corporate environment, we tend to do that. We tend to, I guess you can say, tone down our blackness.
Oh yeah, I code like crazy.
Yeah. Well, the ironic part about toning down our blackness is that there's no definition on being black.
Yeah.
There's no rule book. There's no one thing that we have to do to say, okay, well, I'm a black man.
Yeah.
So I have to wear I have to wear baggy jeans. I have to eat chicken and watermelon every Thursday. The only liquor I can drink is Hennessy. You know, there's no set rule on what we can or can't do. A lot of the views that we have on what we are is from old, outdated views from the past. That was usually based on self-hate.
Right.
There was a statement that Barack Obama made when he was running for Senate, and he said, "I want to change the stigma that speaking properly is associated with talking white."
Right.
And that still is a stigma that we have. You know, if you notice, a lot of the things that are good for us, we consider that to be talking white or acting white. You know, and the things that are bad for us, that's considered to be acting black.
Yeah.
You sag your pants? Yeah, you acting black. You know, or when people say, "Oh, don't make me have to start acting black." So we're taking a derogatory view on us or derogatory stereotype on black people, and we're using that as justification for how we act, as if to say that all black people should act like that, and if you don't act that way, you're not black.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
Like everybody on the call is. He said that that's actually one of the biggest struggles of his life is that he grew up around white people his entire life. Well, so he lived in an urban neighborhood and then moved out and lived around white people. So he started to emulate them. So black people wouldn't speak to him, but they wouldn't recognize him as black. I'm pretty sure you saw the episode of Chappelle's Show where he said that that Wayne Brady makes Brian Gumble look like Malcolm X.
Yeah.
He said that's something that he's always struggled with. Even within our own families. I know me personally, I've struggled with that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people say, "Hey man, stop acting white, stop talking white." You know, it's hurtful. It's very hurtful. It's hard for us to really identify with ourselves.
Yeah, it's hurtful and it gets just so damn annoying.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the point in my life where I ain't got time to like impress anybody or prove to you who I am. Like I know what I am. I'm an amazing, beautiful black man, and I get shit done. So I know who I am. I'm really cocky with it too. Like I'm real cocky about being a black man. I don't know what it is. I'm real cocky about it.
Well, I remember you speaking about when you spoke about the fact that you had an issue with black men your entire life. Do you think that's the reason why you've tended to date interracially?
Not so much, because I'll run into like other like-minded black men, but honestly, it just depends on vibes. Like for me, vibe is important. Doesn't matter about what race you are. But when I was younger, that was like issues. That was part of it. I will say that was part of it. Was trying to prove to black men I was also black. That was a major issue when I was growing up. But like even when it came to like my dating life, it wasn't so much. Yeah, it's just a lot of different little things occurred, but just got to a point I ain't got time to impress nobody, because it happened with black women too. Oh, you talking like a white man or something like that? Oh, you gonna get a white girl? I'm like, no, I'm good.
No. If somebody were to ask you right now, what does it mean to be black? and more especially to be a black man? How do you describe that?
I was about to say what James Baldwin said: to be black and educated in America is be angry all the time, which is true as hell. I'm always angry. But for me to be black, just to be myself, like me being black is being my true, authentic self and knowing where I come from and knowing that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Like that brings me so much joy and happiness that nobody can break me down just because, oh, I don't fit the stereotype of being a black man or the criteria that France has for me. Like for me, it's like I'm doing what my ancestors wanted me to do, which is make the best of my life. That's all I can do. You accept it or not, that's your choice. I already know what I'm doing.
That's good. That's good. Well, Derek, I really appreciate you coming on. I really do.
No problem.
You know, normally we're on a lot longer, but you know we have a lot of guests. I'm definitely going to be coming back to you, and I'm pretty sure the people are going to have a lot of questions. So I'm definitely going to come back to you.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Mo'Week, where are you? Mo? Which you're on. Unmute you.
Hello.
Hey, Mo'Week, how are you? I think you muted. I'm sorry. Hello, Mo'Week? Hello, Mo'Week?
I'm here.
Okay, I got you. Is your video on? Is your video on or off? See you.
My video is on. Everything is up and going.
Okay. Can't see you. I'm not sure why. Can anyone see Mo'Week? You can. Okay, so it's just me. Oh. Is there an echo? Can you hear an echo? You can't. All right. Let's find out what's going on. Okay, still an echo? No? Okay, good. All right. Mo'Week's an interesting person. I've actually known Mo'Week since high school. Sorry. Yeah, I've known Mo'Week since high school. We've always gotten along because she's got such a different personality, and I've tended to befriend people with different types of personality than my own. Mo'Week's an interesting story because she's one of the few black Gothic people that I've ever met. Mo, can you explain exactly what it means to be Gothic?
To be Gothic, there
Yes.
is really no real true definitions of being Gothic. It's just something of an expression of how you're feeling the moments. It's just a flow of things. There's no definition of being Gothic. That's almost like asking, are you human? It's how you feel. It's to be different.
Now, when we went to school, did you go Gothic so that you can stand out, or so that you can appear to be different?
I was thinking I was just being myself.
Your mic went out. I'm sorry.
Stop muting me.
I'm sorry.
Like every time I'm talking, it goes mute. But no, it was just my persona of how I was feeling. I thought about it since elementary, and then when I had the opportunity to do it, I did it. And it was like, okay, fine, whatever. It was like a passing phase that comes and goes whenever I feel like it.
Now, growing up, did you feel that you subscribed to black culture, so like the hip hop, solid dress, wearing your hair a certain way? Did you subscribe to that?
No. I did my own thing. People wore hair down to their back. I didn't put away. Till this day, I got my hair done. I tend to want to take it out because I don't like long hair. But most people say, Bleem, you got to have long hair. You got to have it this way. I prefer to be like a boy cut, to be honest.
No.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Now, did you ever have instances in your life where you didn't feel black enough, or that you didn't fit the mold of what being a black woman was?
Of course.
Can you talk
hasn't?
about that?
Where you
Can you
supposed to
talk about that?
like so when you have to supposedly wear dresses and skirts and all stuff like that. I never tend to like those things at all. And where you supposed to wear makeup every day, your hair and nails done and feet done. That's too much for me. It's too much work sometimes, but I do it anyway. I like it. That's why.
Okay. Now, what about did you like hip hop music?
Now,
Did you like
what about did you like hip hop music?
going to those
Did you
types of
like,
parties, or
going to those types of parties, or
I never really went to parties.
didn't go to parties? Okay.
didn't go to parties? Okay.
No, it wasn't my scene. I never, to this day, I've never once been to a club.
Now, I know that you
Now,
have a lot of
I know that you
piercings
have a lot
and
of
tattoos,
piercings
especially a lot of
and
piercings in your
tattoos,
face.
especially a lot of piercings in your face.
Yep.
Do you sometimes feel
you
like black people look at you
Sometimes feel
differently
like
when
black
they
people
see
look
that,
at you
or
differently when
they
they
may
see
be
that,
afraid or
they may be
nervous around
afraid
you
or nervous around you
when they see
Not
that?
really.
when they see that?
Not really. They think it's a style, it's a phase. Some people think it's kind of cute. At normal person, but like you got too many.
I'm sorry,
I
you said a
technically
normal
don't
person.
care.
I'm sorry, you said a normal person.
Would technically say I got too many.
But you feel like you have just enough.
You feel like you have just enough.
Huh?
You feel like you have just enough.
You feel like you have just enough.
No, I want more.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, another thing that you told me that you
Another
got into
thing
is
you
you're
told me
into
that you
the
got into
whole
is you're
witchcraft
into the
Wicca
whole
thing.
witchcraft Wicca thing.
Yep. I've done it.
Okay, can you talk about that?
Okay, can you talk about that?
What exactly do you need to do? Wicca is basically about energy, cleansing, things in between that.
So is it like casting spells, or throwing demons out, all kinds of stuff like that?
All kinds of stuff like that.
No, not really. But if that's what you want to do, it's almost that so-called. Also, you got that karma you have to look back for it too as well. I never want to throw anything bad out. I just want to keep myself neutral.
Okay. All right. Now, within your family, did you fit in to, I guess, the mold that we have within
Of
the black
course not.
family?
That we have within the black family?
Of course not. I'm the
Yeah.
black. Well, I wouldn't even say so much as the black sheep because everybody in my family is technically black. I was more like the pink and purple one, the odd number color, the one that sits in a corner and be like, nah, I'll eat by myself.
Well, why do you think that you were the black sheep? Is it because you listen to rock music and witchcraft?
Because I was
rock music and witchcraft.
no, it wasn't so much as that. I just seemed like
I think you froze. Mo?
Hello?
There you go. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
It wasn't so much that me being within the family group of being, so much of an outcast. It's just I never seen myself fitting in the way they wanted me to fit in. Not having so many piercings, not so many tattoos and things between it where it seemed like, okay, I have all this on me, but yet y'all are looking at me like I'm not part of your family, like I'm different, I'm odd, I'm not how y'all supposed to be like me growing up. But when I start getting them, it was like, oh, I like this, I'm getting another and another, and then you get called odd, you're strange, you're weird. Like, okay, make it sound like it's a bad thing.
What's so weird is
Odd and strange to me is good.
I'm sorry.
Odd and weird to me is good.
Yeah,
that
it
means
is.
you're
And
not thinking within a box.
And I think that's something that
You think
society tries
outside
to.
of surroundings.
I think that's something that society tries to do with Black America. They try to put us into a box. They try to make it seem like we have to look the same, we have to dress the same, we have to act the same, we have to act the same, fit within a certain realm. And if we don't fit in that realm, we're not black. You choose to be counterculture, which I respect. Do you feel that the life that you live is representative of what a black woman is?
Of course not.
It's not. Okay. So what do you think a black woman is supposed to be like?
She's supposed to be more of a house person, but nowadays black women, they're the one that they're the ones that are micromanaging everything. I mean, to the tiniest detail. Not saying men don't micromanage because some do, but some don't. But in normal cultures in white society, we know absolutely nothing. We're just supposed to cook, clean, and take care of the house, and that is about it, which we mostly do, but doesn't mean we don't know how to run a business, work, and have everything we want, and still have everything that we need and keep everything together at the same time without having to say, oh, you're this way or you're that way.
So you feel that the type of life that you live isn't representative of what black culture should be?
I wouldn't say that. It's my way. There is no type of black, white, or gray. There's just my way, how I would think it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Back in the older days, there was all, well, probably do me used to reading. Back in the Salem witch trial, the witches, they were called witches because they were doing healing, curing the sick, and things in between that. Some of the Salem witch people were black. They wasn't all white. That's the reason why they got cast to death.
Oh, I didn't know that. Can everyone still hear a loud echo from me?
Supposed to know anything. Yeah,
Still?
you got a little echo.
Still?
I'm gonna try to correct that. I'm sorry. Okay, what about now? Is it still an echo? There is.
Not on my end.
There is. Oh. All right. Yeah, I'm working on trying to fix this. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Yeah, I'm not sure. But Novick, is there anything else that you want people just to know about you and your view of Black America, or what it's like to be black?
My view of being black, just technically, just basically be yourself. There's no other way of doing it. There's no right or wrong way. The way you're raised is what you would consider being either black or white. There's no in between. You may change it up some to try to conform to be something totally different because other people, view you one way when in your way is a whole different scenario. I would always tell people, I'm not from this earth. I'm a unicorn. I like unicorns and rainbows. Don't classify me in any field because I'm not classifiable.
Good.
You can't classify me in any type of black, white, gray field when there's a whole nother color palette there is.
Definitely. I don't think being black is classifiable. So. All right. Well, thank you, Mo.
Not a problem.
So we're gonna try to get this audio fixed. Antoine, your audio's out. All right. Antoine.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. What's up?
All right. Hey, folks, is my audio still messed up, or did it clear up? Cleared up?
No more echo. No more echo. No more echo.
No more echo. Good. All right, Antoine. Thanks for coming to the show.
Yeah, I was supposed to get my hair done today. That didn't happen, so don't worry about that.
It's all right, bro.
I'm just here to speak my piece. That's all.
Good. See, you have a unique perspective on being black in America with the fact because you're biracial.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's the ethnicity of your parents?
I am Italian American. My dad was Italian. My mom is black.
Okay. Do you ever have a tough time subscribing to the two cultures or fitting both of those cultures into your life?
I normally only worry too much about like the Italian side of the culture when I'm around that part of the family. which isn't very often. Most of the time, I'm around my African American family members, so it is what it is.
Do you feel?
Uh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Occasionally, like, you know, sometimes, yeah, I do have issues, like, trying to, like, because, you know, people know, they know that I'm like half Italian, and they're like, oh, well, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And, you know, like, they try to, like, throw all these stereotypical things at me, like, oh, you want pasta, you want this, you want that, you know, like, I'm just like, what? But, you know, it just sometimes it's just like it can be a headache.
Well, what's the difficult part, the most difficult part, do you think, with being
Uh,
biracial?
The most difficult part is when nobody knows what the hell I am. Like, if I go somewhere and nobody knows what the hell I am, like, I get mistaken for Spanish a lot, Dominican, all kinds of stuff, and nobody knows that I'm Italian American, so they're, you know, like, that's not something that they automatically think about, and then I end up being all these other races before I actually get a chance to correct them and say, hey, no, this is what I am.
Now, there's an old saying that if you have one drop of black blood in you, you're black. Do you consider yourself to be black? If someone were to ask you, or do you tell them that you're biracial?
I tell most people I'm biracial. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem disclosing that information. I feel like the more that they know, the better they can either observe me or understand me, and that's always important. I feel like that doesn't happen amongst people as often as it should.
Now, when you're around your Italian side of the family, do you at times feel like you have to tone down your blackness?
Yeah. Just like what was his name? Derek in the beginning. He was
Yes.
saying like a lot of stuff about him. He had to like tone down and stuff. And I've honestly had to even code switch between my friends and my family, and then just people that, you know, I know. Like, it's sometimes you just have to, like, you know, I remember him mentioning that, you know, about the music stuff. Like, I used to listen. You know me. I was in a band, and I'm a musician. I listen to literally everything. So, you know, like, there was a lot of times where I'd be playing some music or whatever. My mom would come around and be like, "Oh, turn that white music off." Blah 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 blah. So, like, I've witnessed and experienced a lot of the same things that he has, and I'm pretty sure, you know, it might echo throughout this entire video chat. But you know, I've experienced stuff like that, and it's been tough because it's like, you know, like, I enjoy this. Like, why can't I just, like, you know, why can't you just be happy for me?
Mhm.
But
Someone says,
a lot of times I do have to do that, like, just, you know, tone it down, because like people don't understand. Like, having grown up in a Black household, and you know, like nobody understands. Okay, he's mixed. Maybe he might have other interests or whatever like that. You know, and it's like weird because like my mom, when she was younger, she used to listen to like, you know, 70s white music or whatever, you know, whatever, what everybody considered to be like white music in the 70s or whatever. You know, like Bobby Caldwell and stuff like that, like, which we technically consider Bobby Caldwell like to technically have a black voice, but
He
still,
does.
like, no, a lot of people didn't know that he was actually white.
yeah, for a long time. I didn't know that until recently.
I found out recently too, maybe like a year and some change ago. So I'm just like, yo, and you know, like, you listen to all this stuff and you never knew who these people were. And I told her, and she's like, really? He's white?
Mhm.
But you know, like, there's been plenty of times where I had to code switch and just be like, all right, I'm just gonna pretend to be somebody I'm not today because whatever. But then, like, as I've gotten older, I just don't give a shit anymore.
Now, have you ever had to code switch back when you're around your black friends or black side of the family? When you've had to
Absolutely.
extra black, or, you know, try to pretend
Absolutely.
that you like certain things that they like, but you really don't, or don't
Yeah.
care about it?
Yep, absolutely. I, like, you know, like, until I got to the point where I stopped caring, like, I would have to code switch around everybody. I'd be like, all right, I know I'm about to be around the black side of my family. I need to make sure that I'm playing like some hip hop, some R&B, whatever, and all that stuff. But like I said, as I've gotten older, I just don't care anymore. Like, I do what I want at this point. And it's like, you can either accept it or not. And whatever decision you make is perfectly fine. You have that right to make a decision, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. But I know it's got to be a lot of pressure because I'm pretty sure that the two sides of the families probably make jokes about the other race. I'm pretty sure that on the black side of the family, they probably make white jokes, and on the white side of the family, they probably make black jokes.
And it's like shit you don't want to hear. It's like, you know, like, oh, what are they doing this week? Cooking out, eating watermelon, whatever. You know, like, I don't want to hear that shit. Like, you know.
Hey, watermelon's amazing.
Even you know, we went to school together and shit. You know, even back in the day, like when I was back at the high school, and even when I was in middle school, I had to code switch a lot. You know, I got bullied a lot as a younger individual, and it was tough, you know, because it's like I never knew how to act. Like I used to get bullied for being smart. You know, I'm smart. I'm very intelligent. I used to get bullied for that. People would be like, hey, you know, you come to class, you're answering all the questions and making us all look dumb. So, you know, like they want to beat me up. They want to do this, do that, whatever. I'm just like, really? Like, is it that serious? So like, even like when it came to my academics and learning and stuff, like I kind of like, I kind of toned that back. But then, you know, like I got older and I realized like I kind of shot myself in the foot by doing that.
Did you ever hear the statement, oh, you're acting white, you're talking white? Is that something that you would often hear?
All the time, especially when I was at high school. A lot of times I would hear those words. And it was like really annoying because it's like, I'm like, how is speaking proper acting white, or listening to a certain type of music acting a certain way? Like, music is universal. Music is a love language. It's so much that is connected to music, and it's like, I feel like music is more about emotion, because it's like, if you hear a certain type of music, it makes you feel a certain type of way, whether that's good or bad or whatever emotion you're looking for. There's always a type of music to connect with that. So yeah.
Okay. But you're in Black America now, so people look at you. They'll look at you from a distance, like you said. They think that you're Hispanic, or they think that you're some other race. Do you feel racism differently because you're biracial?
Do I feel what?
Do you feel, or actually, let me clarify, do you see racism differently because you're biracial?
No, I still feel like, regardless of the fact that I'm mixed or anybody else is mixed, like, I feel like everybody should be treated equally. I feel like, you know, that's something that should have been changed a long time ago. I feel like right now, as it stands, like, that's just a narrative that needs to be properly corrected and as soon as possible. I don't see it differently, because it's like, regardless of how many races I'm mixed with, like, you know, why does somebody have to be treated this way or whatever? But then on the same token, think about it, like, the racism thing, you know, having Black in me is still like, it's concerning, because it's like, if I get pulled, fortunately I haven't gotten pulled over many times, but it's like, you know, if I get pulled over, like, could the same shit that happened to me happen to, you know, I mean, the same shit that happened to somebody on TV that I saw happen to me? Like, can that happen to me? So that's something that I carry with me too, and I always worry about that as well. I'm like, you know, cops are stupid, and all they know how to do is like pull out a gun and shoot it.
Mm-hmm. But whenever you're around, I guess you can say, whenever you're around your Black family, I'm pretty sure you've heard statements about white people in general, about how they don't really understand us. They don't really see the battles that we're going through. They don't understand what we're going through. Now, how do you handle that when you hear that from your family? Do you kind of tell them?
That's a good question. Honestly, to tell you the truth, like, it's hard to have to explain how one half or part of my family is dealing with this stuff, and then the other half is perfectly fine. Like, They have absolutely nothing to worry about. So it's annoying to have to hear that back and forth, talking about, oh, they, they need to deal with it or whatever, or, it's just a lot of shit you don't ever want to hear.
Mhm.
And I honestly just don't want to. I kind of like tune it out now. I don't worry about it as much anymore because that's the easiest way to like rid yourself of stress, is to not worry about it in the first place.
Mhm.
And so I don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, yeah, you know what? Having I can also speak of being mixed and owning a business. That's sometimes that's tough because people think, because I'm mixed, that, like they don't know that I'm black or whatever. They think they could just get over on you. They're like, oh, he's light skinned, he might be Spanish or whatever. I can take advantage of him. I can ask him for a discount, whatever. When most times, like people that actually know black people, they won't step to them and be like, hey, let me get a discount, stuff like that. Although I have seen it. So that's kind of like annoying too.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on, Antoine. I really appreciate it.
No problem. When you do the mental health part 2, let me know. I want to be there.
I'll definitely let you know. There's been a couple of questions that have been coming through. For those that are sending questions, can you wait until we get to the Q&A, because I don't want to lose your question. So again, if you're sending them through, please wait until the Q&A. I promise you I'll get to your questions. Thanks again, Antoine.
No problem.
We're going to open it up for Jewel. Where are you? I'm trying to see if I can see.
Hi.
Hey, Jewel, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. See, you have a unique perspective on being Black in America because you're in a interracial relationship.
Yep. I'm married to a lovely Caucasian man.
Okay. Now, have you only dated interracially, or have you dated Black men?
No. So actually, I've never dated
Wow.
a Caucasian man. I've dated, my ex was biracial, half Caucasian, half Black. So yes. But it's funny because my now husband, he pursued me for 2 years. And I was like, nah, because on my vision board was Black love, and I wanted Black love. I held this weight on my shoulder for whatever reason, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, that I wanted beautiful Black babies. And I wanted to teach and show my kids that they could have a family that was intact, and they didn't have to come from a family that was divorced, and they didn't have to come from a family that was biracial to have that. I work in the mental health field, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I see a lot of kids, and you know the statistics, we see a lot of broken homes, and for whatever reason, like that was my vision. So when he pursued me, I was like, nah, like you're white, like I need to marry a Black man, sorry. And long story short, how it came about as far as me even dating him was, it was God. Like I prayed about it, and God just showed me that everything I had ever desired and wanted in a man and had prayed for was right in front of me. And so many times we have these expectations, we make a list of what we want, and we don't even realize what we need or what we're missing out on, because physically or what we see with our natural eye, it's not what I wanted. And God showed me that when you surrender all to him, he'll give you every dream and every desire, but it won't be necessary in your timing, and it won't be in the package you want it. And that's when God truly showed me. And I had, at the time I was moving, and I had went to Montana, and I was working at a therapeutic boarding school, and I was the only, Black person out there, very racist. And it was then where God showed me, like, I got you. And that's when, in short story, he showed me, like, you're saying no to what you've asked me for when I'm trying to bless you because of the color of his skin. Yet this is everything you ever wanted / needed, and you didn't even know it.
Well, do you feel that you at times get backlash from your own race for dating outside of your race?
Yeah, I'm sure people talk about it. No one has ever said anything to me directly. I think it's interesting. We're really quick to be like, oh, like Caucasian women are stealing all our great black men and all of these things, and we want someone to love us and to accept us for who we are, but then we're so quick to judge because they're not what we expected or they're not in our own race, and yet we just all want to feel accepted and we all want to be loved, and yet we want to do it in our parameters. So it's like we're so quick sometimes to judge, like, oh, how dare you date outside your race, or like, you know, like you're taking all of our good black women or black men. And yet it's like, if someone is in a relationship and it makes them happy and they can be who God created them to be, then who are we to judge them and tell them they're wrong for that?
Now, before you dated your husband, were you in favor of interracial relationships or no?
Yeah, I wasn't against it. I've always
Okay.
been one who's like, whatever makes you happy. And I don't like to be put in a box, and I don't like to
Sure.
be in a box. And so I really think it's like who that person is as a person, and you guys have qualities, and who do you love? And so I think sometimes you'll find, and being a therapist, I'll meet people and they're in relationships and stuff because whether they feel the pressure, they feel like they have to, but they're not even happy in what they're in. But it's whether they feel like it's accepted or they feel like they're going to get backlash from their family and no one's going to be approving of it. But like, are you truly happy? And what makes you happy? And are we doing what makes us happy despite what someone else is going to say to us?
Yeah, it's a scary slash touchy subject. I actually lost a friend of mine because she saw my girlfriend, and my girlfriend's light skinned with reddish type hair. And this friend saw my girlfriend, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "Couldn't you get a black girl?" Because her view was that my girlfriend wasn't black. I said, "Well, she is black." And what
Right.
she didn't know is that she's the same complexion as my mom, and my mom has red hair. So when I brought that up to her, the person, she then asked me, "Well, couldn't you have gotten someone darker?" Because I guess the view is that if you're black, and if you get to a certain level of success, the first thing that we always do is get a white girl. That's something that I've heard so many times, that, okay, if you get any amount of success, the first thing that you do is get a white girl. Same thing with a lot of black women. I've heard that about black women, like the Serena Williams or the Venus Williams or one of the Maori sisters. You get to a certain level of success, you're not black anymore. We're taking your black card because the first thing that you did was went and got someone from another race to validate yourself.
Right.
Is that something that you feel that you've had to deal with?
I don't know. Again, I think it's something we all have to deal with on a certain level. My family has always been like, whatever makes you happy. I'm from the North, so I actually tuning in from Connecticut. And so I grew up in a very affluent town. The high school I went to was, majority Caucasian. I played soccer, and I got a lot of backlash, like you guys were talking about. Oh, you talk white, you want to be white, all of these things. But my family has always raised us, to taught us to know who we are, and to know that like, we are a black woman. I have black older brothers. Like, you are black, and that's what someone's going to see first, despite what your character is. And so you have to work harder. But they totally created us to be like who God made you to be, whatever that looks like. And understanding, like, in society, you're going to have to be more aware of the racial differences and all of those things. But I think that sometimes those things stem from other people's hurt. So like their hurt and maybe how our community is being displayed, or what has been said to them, or people they know in relationships, that they take it as like we're leaving our community behind. Rather than even understanding the story behind like what that looks like. And I think, again, for me, my whole lens always goes back to, who did God create you to be? And God created us to love each other and to show love. And there's so many different layers to that affect that, where we get into expectations and stereotypes of like, how are we building up our black community, and what are we doing when someone sees us doing something with a different race, where we're dividing. And so we're dividing, and we should be coming together, whatever that
Mhm.
looks like. And that's easier said than done. So I think
Mhm.
there's so many layers that people get backlash for so many things they do, right? Like you were speaking, and everyone spoke to like how I speak and what do I sound like. And the question is kind of like, where do these expectations for us come from? Like what it means to be Black, where are we getting our expectations of what that looks like?
You're right. You're completely right. Like I said, when people often say, well, I'm pulling your Black card, first off, who gave you the card to pull?
Right.
And what's on that card? You know, whenever you get that card, people will say, well, you have no rhythm, so you're not Black. You know, you don't eat fried chicken and watermelon, you're not Black. You know, you're not down for the cause and super pro Black, you're not Black. Who are these people to tell us what it means to be Black? To be honest with you, there's no definition to being Black. I mean, every one of you that's on this call, you're Black. You're Black. You're a living embodiment of being what Black is.
Right.
Black is the only race, or Black people are the only race that can be as white as paper and as dark as pavement and still be Black. We're the only ones that can do that. So there really is no meaning, but we try to fit into this society or these norms that society tells us that we have to fit into. So society tells us that, you know, we have to speak a certain way when we're at work, but as soon as we get around our family, we have to talk, we have to speak differently. We have to act differently. We all have to know how to dance. We all have to know certain songs. You know, we all have to know the Electric Slide. You know, you can't be Black and go to a Black wedding and not know the Electric Slide. They'll talk about you.
Right.
But it's something that's unrealistic and unsustainable. You know, it really stems from a lack of love. In all honesty, we don't love ourselves enough because we're so busy trying to fit into what people are telling us we have to be. We're afraid to stand out on our own and be our own individuals. We're afraid to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm Black. I'm Black and I have 17 tattoos in my face. I'm Black and I'm in an interracial relationship. You know, I'm Black and I love rock music.
Right.
You know, I really hope that this stigma goes away. I really do, because it's hard and it's tiring. It's tiring trying to conform with being Black.
Yeah, it is. I think, you know, you've created a great platform for people to tell their stories and to own who they are and just to come into their truth and what that looks like, because the amount of people you have on this, like we're all different. Yeah, we are all African American and our skin looks different than other races. And yet you can't compare me to the other African American women on this and say, oh, you're not Black because you don't do this and what she does, because we're all different. God made us individually and he all made us uniquely different and we'll all need it. So we're all going to bring something different to the table. And yet there's always going to be someone who wants to find a reason to tell you, oh, you're not Black enough, you're not this. And yet it's like, okay, but I am fully who I was created to be, so I'm enough. And I don't think we tell ourselves enough, like of what you're saying, as far as, do we love ourselves enough? Do we own who we are? Like I own every part of me, and like no one's gonna put me in a box and tell me, oh, you're not Black enough. Oh, how dare you marry a Caucasian man? Okay, cool. So are you happy as you continue to talk about other people around you? Or what are you doing to make yourself and your life better, to be happy where you are and where you're created? You know, like you look at the time we're in now with this pandemic, you're shut away, and you've been disconnected from all sorts of levels. And yet God has brought us back to like, what makes you happy? What are you doing with your life? Or are we comparing ourselves to social media? Are we comparing ourselves to media and all of these things that absolutely don't mean anything? And yet through society, we're taught to put them into like, this is important. And this is how I define myself. And this is how I define success. And this is how I define what makes me happy. And yet, are you happy or are you miserable?
Yeah, or another way to look at it is, are you happy or are you fitting in?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of us are doing. A lot of us we're spending our time fitting in. We have to be one person at home, and then we go to work, we have to be another person. We go around our friends, we have to be another person. That gets tiring after a while.
Yeah.
Because we're
And you know
afraid
what
to just be ourselves.
the hard part is, if you stop and listen, everyone feels that way in one aspect or another. We're all competing to feel loved and to feel heard and to feel valued and to have relationships, because God created us to be in relationships with people. And so like, what are we doing with that? And what are we doing to love who we are and to
Mhm.
better ourselves and better whoever we're around, no matter what your race is. Like we're people, we're human, like we are human, and yet we attack other humans because of history and society and expectations that we're supposed to have. And how often do we hear like I'm beautiful, I am enough, I'm beautiful whether my hair is relaxed, whether it's natural, whether I wear a weave, whether I don't, whether I decide to get another taper cup and go bald. And there's so many levels. Like even when I cut off all my hair and I had, you know, and I went natural, I was dating an African American D1 basketball player, and the amount of teammates was like, "Oh, I have a dumper." I'm like, "Cool, I'm not dating you. Like, you dump me because of what? Because I don't fit into what you want us to fit into." And yet, for what? Like, where do we get all these different expectations of where we're judging people? And yet, there's so many layers to what you said as far as fitting in. Because whether we realize it consciously or unconsciously, every message we get from society and media is about how to fit in. And yet it's constantly changing. What about fitting in is the same? You look about trends and everything, they're changing. So what are we fitting into, and who are we striving to be, and who are you, and why? Who told you to be that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Derek, I see your hand. I'll get to you when we get to Q&A. I know you have your question.
I just wanted to piggyback on Jewel. It's cool.
Don't worry. You know, go ahead. You can say it.
So what?
Yeah, you can say it.
Oh no, the only thing I was gonna say is real quick. Is literally you explained it perfectly, but only thing I was gonna say is at the end of the day, if you want to be your true authentic black self, you gotta say F everybody. Family, friends, people who don't approve of how you live, F them. At the end of the day, F them. And that's just the truth.
And thank you for cleaning it up. This is the first time that I've ever heard you not use a curse.
But I'm trying to be better, trying to be better.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, being that you're in an interracial relationship, do issues of race come up in your marriage?
I wouldn't say issues, but conversations for sure. I mean, we would be naive to not have conversations. I mean, with what's going on in the world around us, you know, I don't shut ourselves away and act oblivious, like, oh, this isn't a thing, don't worry. But, you know, we've had conversations from before we were dating and premarital counseling to now when we're married, where I'm like, you know, you're going to have conversations, and you're going to have to be aware of Black history. You're going to have to be aware of what's going on, because one day you're going to have a Black son or a Black daughter. And just because you're his dad and you're Caucasian does not mean that they're not going to be treated unfairly. And so I find there are certain conversations, we are all raised differently culturally in different aspects, even though we are all African American, yet we were all raised differently. And so for me, being with a Caucasian male, we're completely raised differently. Your parents never had to sit you down and talk about, you know, like, because of the color of your skin, you're going to be treated this way. People are going to look at you different. People are going to automatically assume that you're uneducated and you're this and you're that. We were in the store a couple of weeks ago when I had family down from Georgia, and, you know, we had people following us in the store because of the amount of food we bought, just assuming, you know, we were stealing it or we couldn't afford it. And so as a Caucasian, he's not used to that. And yet he's used to certain things because he has friends of all different races, where it wasn't this sense of like, I'm educating you completely where you're oblivious. But there is another aspect. We'll be in stores and people will stare, and he's like, people are staring. I'm like, of course, like, you're with a Black woman, like, what do you expect? And you'll get some who smile and happy, and you'll get some who give you the look like, how dare you, like, what are you doing? So there's not issues, but there are conversations all the time as far as just educating each other, just like he educates me. You know, I've had to do a lot of work on stopping myself and being like, oh, that's a Caucasian thing. Like, from simple things to big things, you know what I mean? And I've had to stop myself that it's not fair for the Black community and African Americans to not want people to judge us on our race and not stereotype and not say, oh, that's a Black thing, that's this, but yet turn around and be like, oh, that's a Caucasian thing, only white people do that. And it's all based off stereotypes. And yet we're taught from a young age to generalize. We're taught from kindergarten to generalize what we see, to get information, to take it in, to do what. And yet as you get older, it only gets worse. And so now we assume and we put everyone in this category of like, oh, all white people do this, all Black people do this, and it's not fair. So I've had to do a lot of work on myself of stopping myself and just being like, okay, that's how you were raised. You know, we were raised differently. Let's have a conversation rather than saying, oh, that's a white people thing.
Well, being that you lived in a mostly white affluent neighborhood, did you, I guess, go out of your way to not do things that were stereotypically black so that you wouldn't stand out or be seen as a stereotype?
No, I didn't. I think that, again, I had parents that cultivated, you know, our gifts and our strengths, and, you know, we were made aware of what that looked like, you know, and I've had a lot of racial incidences living in a majority Caucasian school and neighborhood, but I don't think there was ever like, I'm gonna not do this because I'm black. Like, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, a blessing, I've always been Jewel unapologetically. And that was just a characteristic God gave me at a young age, that there was never a fact of like, I'm gonna tone anything down. It's just who I was. There was a sense of, as I've gotten older, I've learned that there's a time and place for everything. And the sense of, growing up, I was called like, you're blunt and you're a bitch because I told the truth. So I've learned there's a way I communicate things, and there's a time and there's a place. And sometimes you just got to shut up and pray. Sometimes it's not even worth opening your mouth. And there's other times where like, no, I'm going to educate you. Like that's not okay. And this isn't what it is. And that's on so many levels, because growing up, I played soccer my whole life. And so people would meet me like, oh, you must play track. You must be a basketball player. Like, you're so fit. I'm like, no, I play soccer. Why? And it's because of stereotypes of how we are generalized, that if you play a sport and you're black, you must play basketball or you must run track. Like soccer, white people play soccer. And yet that's not true. Like, we look in different countries, like that's completely not true. But in America, for whatever reason, we were like, no, that's not a thing. So.
Well, thank you. Your view is really what I think that Black Americans should strive to, a view that we should strive to have, the kind of effort view. You know, you're good the way you are. You're black enough the way that you are. You are representative of what being black is. Everyone on this phone is, or everyone on this call, I'm sorry, is representative of what being black is. And I really, really appreciate it. And if you get a chance, you know, continue to spread that word to other people. Let them know that it's okay to be you. That's okay to be themselves.
You said it perfectly. That's what it is. Because again, if you think about, we're not all made the same, and that's for a reason. And so I don't take any of the glory. I give it all to God, because at the end of the day, between my walk and finding out who he created me to be, I've realized like, I am enough. Like, you know, we have weaknesses, but I'm okay. It's okay. It's okay to feel, it's okay to get back up, and all of those things. And so at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like, who are you individually, and who are you created to be, and what are you adding to this world? And you got to be content with yourself. Like you said, it comes back to self-love. If you don't love yourself, no one's going to love you. And you have to create boundaries for yourself. Otherwise, people are going to walk all over you, and people treat you how you allow them to treat you. And again, that's easier said than done. That takes a lot of work, especially when you have to peel back the layers of just how you were raised and different things and traumas and what was instilled to you and what was said to you. We all have a story, and we all dealt with things differently. And so sometimes, and it goes back to what you guys were talking about, mental health, sometimes like you got to process the shit you went through to be able to be a better person today. And if you don't process it and you think I'm going to be okay, just know it's going to come back up. It's going to come back up, and it's going to affect your life in the present. And it's going to harm you. And so we've got to take the time to self-reflect and to work on ourselves to be better.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much, Jewel.
Thank you.
Kara. We can't hear you. Your mic's on.
Hi,
Hi, Kara. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. Well, thanks a lot for doing this. Full disclosure, Kara and I have been talking about this episode for about a week or so. We've both been very, very excited just to talk about it, just the idea of what being black is. Kara was a little surprised that I asked her
Yeah.
to be on the show. her question to me specifically was, what makes you think that I don't think I'm black enough? So, and I try to explain to her that it's not a matter of that, but, you know, certain people may have misconceptions about you because you're an attorney, because of the way that you speak, the way that you carry yourself. Certain people may assume that you don't act the way that typical black people act. Is that something that you felt or dealt with a lot growing up?
Absolutely. From high school up until now, I think many people tonight have touched upon it, the way that we speak, you know, verb, noun, agreement. You know, sometimes we associate that with being Caucasian, but no, it's just an appreciation for the English diction, you know. Full disclosure, I teach English, have been doing so at a junior college for the past like 3 or 4 years. But I thought it was funny that you asked me to be part of the show, because when I think of, am I black enough, right? I think of, you know, someone who is conscientious of the things that they do and their surroundings because they're black. I think it was Jules who said this about, you know, growing up black, that having a conversation, sitting down with her family and her family, or her parents perhaps, for talking to her and her siblings about being a person of color. I don't recall having those conversations with my family, not because they weren't conscientious of color, but my parents are from the South. I was born and raised in New Jersey, went to undergrad in New Jersey, law school in the Midwest. However, I think my parents, because they came from a highly racist area, they wanted me to pursue life without being mindful of race. And I try to be the best person I can be, the best black person, but most importantly, the best representative of Christ, right? So I try my hardest to be a good woman. I try my hardest to be someone that God is proud of. So when I get these comments like, you know, you're acting a certain way, in my mind, subconsciously, I'm thinking, okay, this person's uneducated, because they're automatically associating goodness with whiteness.
That's actually true. That's actually something that tends to come up whenever we speak with a certain diction, or whenever we carry ourselves a certain way. That's usually the belief. The belief is you're acting right, or you're trying to pretend to be more than you are, so that you can fit in with white America. I've known you for a long time. You've never come off that way to me at all, ever. You've always been at the forefront of pretty much every black issue, whether it be police brutality, whether it be education, finance. You've always been at the forefront. Now, being that you've been so involved with black issues, but you've had this stigma of not being black enough, do you at times feel that you try to overcompensate your blackness? Your blackness?
Yes. Do I overcompensate? You know, and it wasn't until we're, you know, talking to you about this show that I think perhaps maybe with, and again, it goes back, and I think Jules had phenomenal points rather about our ideology of what the perfect marriage means for us. And me being a woman who is proud to be a black woman, I think in my mind, I'm married to the idea of black love. Like, I want my husband to be black. And I think that when I hear comments such as, oh, you know, you act a certain way, I can see you marrying a certain type of person, particularly, oh, you need to be with a white man. A white man is going to give you what you want. A white man is going to put up with, you know, the way how firm I am, or what may have you. So when I hear things like that, it bothers me, right? And I think perhaps subconsciously, you know, to show people that I'm not acting a certain way to fit in, or I'm not acting a certain way so that you can see less blackness in me, but I'm acting a certain way because this is who I am. This is my personality. This is who God has authorized me to be. I think that perhaps maybe in the past, subconsciously, I intentionally tried to date black men in particular, you know, the how can I say this? The Hollywood version of a black stallion, you know, tall, dark skin, you know, low haircut, you know, nice build, six pack, you know, that's what I was hoping for. So, but God's like, nah, sis, not now. You know, I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, so I think during that time period, I probably overcompensated because I wanted people to know, like, listen, I'm not acting this way so that I can, you know, receive certain attention from a person. No, like, I am, this is who I am. And I think maybe I intentionally, perhaps, maybe, you know, strive to have a dark skinned man just so I can say, like, listen, y'all, like, y'all were wrong. Like, I'm down for the call. Look at my husband. Look at my children.
Now, I have another question with that. Is part of the reason that you went for a darker skinned man is because of that stigma? You know, there's a stigma that if a guy is light skinned, he's soft, or he's a pretty boy, or, you know, he's not the type to protect you. But if you have a darker skinned man, he's the strong, aggressive man that's going to keep you safe. That's, you know, that Mandingo. You know, is that part of the reason why you went after a dark skinned man? Everybody's laughing.
No, actually it's not. And I remember, the more I'm thinking about this, I remember having a conversation with actually two different men, both of whom were light skinned at the time, and separate times. And I remember one guy making a comment like, "Oh, talking about dark skinned people," and I'm like, "Bruh." Now again, I don't care. I tan. When I say I tan, I go out in the sun, no hat. Like, I love walking. I love to be sun kissed. So maybe this is me a little bit darker than, you know, I would be during other seasons. And here's why I'm saying that, right? Because I was dating other, you know, lighter skinned men, and they make comments about darker skinned women. And I'm like, you know, I'm dark skinned. They're like, nah, you just make the cut. Whatever that means. And I think subconsciously, I'm like, oh, I can't even be with light skinned men because this is how they think. You know, because again, it's that image. And I think that I was taking this burden upon myself to try to perfect the image of the Black, you know, of the Black family, right? To say that, like, I am a Black educated woman who loves the Lord. I'm trying to do good things for the community. Here's my Black 6'3", you know, tall, dark, handsome, well-educated, well-groomed, well-dressed, you know, all this type, you know, man, this is who God has blessed me with. So I love myself so much. I want to date a man even darker than me, so I can give him brown, dark-skinned babies, and my brown and dark-skinned babies are going to do wonderful things that's going to defy your stereotypes.
Do you feel that if you... I'm sorry?
I used to think that, yes.
So did you feel that if you dated a lighter skinned man, that you were... I don't know how I want to put this. That if you were dating a lighter skinned man, you were fitting a mold because you're an educated woman. So a lot of educated women, again, tend to have that stigma of, I'm going to get myself a light skinned man. I'm going to get myself a white man or a man of another race. Do you feel that you were fitting that stigma? You would have been fitting that stigma had you gone with a lighter skinned man.
I think that perhaps maybe subconsciously, given the concept, right, of not concepts of the conversation. One guy in particular, he's an attorney. He was privileged to go to phenomenal institutions, and, you know, he's working for a phenomenal company. He has really great opportunities. And I will never forget the conversation. We were in the car. It was myself and his little cousin. His little cousin was like recalling a story that they were talking about dark-skinned people. And they were like, and I think their family, who was like brown skin, light skin, they were, I guess, on one side of the street, and across the street were dark-skinned people. And the little cousin was like, yeah, oh my goodness, here they come talking about the dark-skinned Black people. And they said, oh, and then the guy who I was dating at the time said, oh my goodness, I'm so happy we don't look like them, you know, whatever's. So I think subconsciously in my mind, I kind of associated, you know, perhaps maybe at the time, and forgive me, right? All, you know, I'm allowed to make mistakes during a time period. I started thinking that, you know, perhaps maybe all, you know, a lot of light-skinned people thought that way, or better yet, maybe it was a lot that I think I was internalizing. Perhaps, you know, also dealing with the fact of, if I'm dating a light-skinned man, you didn't really ask this question, but I'm just going to throw this answer in. If I'm dating a light-skinned man, what happens if my children look more like me and my complexion? I can deal with that. Y'all not going to be talking about my burnt babies. Like, no, we're going to have some issues, right? Because I love Jesus, but, like, I will fight you and pray about it later. Just kidding. I've never hit anybody. But the point, what I'm ultimately saying is, I think that I just wanted to really be that, like, that ideal citizen for Black America. I want people to say, oh, wow, this is the Black woman. This is what a Black family is. This is what Black love looks like. And unfortunately, I just don't think that, you know, I think that my perception was wrong based upon, you know, me trying to overcome stereotypes that I had no business trying to address.
Okay. All right. Now, with you being an educated Black woman and you being an attorney, especially being a former prosecutor and defense attorney, I'm pretty sure that you were in a pretty white world. There probably wasn't a lot of people that looked like you in the world that you were in. With that being the case, do you feel that you had to tone down who you were?
Absolutely.
Or how you acted?
Here's the thing. Even now, like so I've been a practicing attorney for 7 years, and I have like bright orange summer nails, and I'm wearing jewelry, you know, on different fingers. And I feel like I finally made it to the point in my career where I can express myself creatively as possible as I want to. Creatively. Sorry guys, I'm like super tired. It's been a long day, like excuse me. But what I think that ultimately I would try to fit into the traditional attorney. So like right now my hair is natural, it's in a bun, but it's not straight and it's just natural. I have hoops on, that's a big no-no. Like I'm more content because I think, and I don't know if another professional, another attorney's on the line, they would disagree with me. It's about fitting in and being as traditional as possible to show your credibility. A lot of times as an attorney, I want to fit in so that I don't stand out, so that I represent the interests of my client to the best of my ability. I'm fortunate right now to work in corporate, which I don't know the breakdown of Black attorneys in the statistics. So I don't necessarily know where a lot of Black people practice. I know that God has blessed me with the opportunity to practice in a few areas of law. But my job as a Black attorney is to make sure that I'm being heard and not seen. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to embarrass the profession, nor do I want to embarrass my client. So again, it's about not necessarily, I would say, it's not about promoting certain stereotypes, but it's about being the best attorney as I possibly can. It was kind of a lawyerly, like circling around the answer type of response that I gave you. But it's not about being Black, but really it's about trying to be the best advocate that I possibly can for my client.
Now, do you ever feel, especially being in the field that you're in, do you ever feel that you're representing all of Black people or Black people in general when you go into that field? So do you feel that you work harder because you're Black, or do you act a certain way because of the preconceived notion of especially women of color? Do you feel that you change the way that you work or change aspects of your personality to conform to that?
So again, I think it's if you didn't mention the fact that I were an attorney, I think I would answer a little differently. But because you mentioned the fact that I'm an attorney, I think that again, as an attorney really never has much autonomy. Our position is to represent our client's interests to the best of our ability. Keeping what you said in mind, I look young a lot. I believe I do. I'm 33. So a lot of times when, and again, I've been practicing law for 7 years. So when I first would, represent, and again, I've had the ability to represent government entities. I've been a prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, and now I work for a wonderful company. A lot of times when I show up being the attorney of record, I get this look, or, you get the look like, oh, are you the intern? Or I had one time I was taking a deposition when I was working in a firm. They said, are you the law clerk? Or one time someone said, oh my goodness, you are just so intelligent. You should go to law school. And I said, yeah, I think I just may. So you feed, and depending on who you're talking with, you kind of hype them up or whatever. But again, my job, especially being African American, especially being a woman, especially looking younger, right? I have to be very careful, in regards to how I represent myself. There's a time and place for everything. I even my problem is I communicate with my body language. I got a couple of texts earlier saying, Carol, your faces are funny. And it sometimes it's just like, I could be thinking about dinner, I'm hungry again. So it's just like, I think these things, but I try as an attorney, especially as a woman of color. So I guess to answer your question, I just try harder to make our race look better. I'm trying not to promote stereotypes. I'm trying to defy stereotypes.
And that's real what you said about how you have to work harder to make yourself, our race look better. I think that's something that we all have to do. I think that we all go into society itself. We try hard not to be those stereotypes. We try hard to be the best versions of ourselves, because there are those that are looking at us and expecting us to be those stereotypes. They're expecting us to be loud, to be ghetto, to be ignorant. It's an expectation that we have. And I'm really happy that you've done that. I think that everyone on this call does. And it should hopefully change the stigma or view that the rest of the world has against us or of us. But if they don't, screw them. At the end of the day, screw them. we're proud Black people. So before I open it up for questions or comments, is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think this is awesome. I think that this platform is needed.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we had a couple of questions from earlier. I want to try to run through them quickly because I'm going to cut it off at 10. If we still have more left over, we'll do a part 2. So let's go with, let's see. Tracy, is there a certain group that accepts you more, white side or black side? Tracy, who was that question for?
Whenever you're ready, we're ready for you.
I think it was the Antoine guy that was speaking when I came on, and I was just wondering those little things because he was going back and forth between his white side and black side of the family. So I was wondering if one side was more racist or if he felt safe with one particular side. But you don't have to answer those questions.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Just checking to see if there's any other questions. All right, Joanne. Why is ghetto synonymous with black? Where did that come from?
I'm right.
I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants to answer before I do.
And today we're seeking $75,000.
I can't hear you. Your mic's off.
Did you unmute me? Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Your mic's off again. There you go. Now you're back on.
okay. Really cool. So it's interesting, right? We're actually wrong when we say that a person is ghetto, right? Because we have to think about this. In order for something to modify a noun, it has to change it. The word ghetto cannot modify a noun, a person, place, or thing, right? Because it's ultimately, it's a surrounding. And so when we think about it, I mean, when you look at it from the linguistic perspective, you really need to have an adjective that modifies a noun because a ghetto is an actual place. So you have to be more specific. Like, are you saying that you, based upon your surroundings, you speak differently, you think differently, you have, appetite for different foods. So like linguistically, it doesn't even make any sense. So we have to correct ourselves. I think but not dismissing the question, but what we have to be mindful of is that Black people, unfortunately, when we think of certain areas that we come from, it's only or very specifically limited to the Black race, where we'll talk about the environment in which we come from that will ultimately negatively affect our behavior. For example, if a Caucasian person were to come from, let's say, for instance, an area where there's a lot of trailer parks and it's a highly crime infested area, we're not automatically going to say that this person is, excuse my language, trailer park trash, right? Unless we know for a fact this person is from that area. So just because a Black person speaks a certain way or dresses a certain way, like, I don't know if you can see it, at one point my hair was like blonde, I wear hoops, am I from the ghetto? Like, it makes no sense. So we have to stop. Number one, we have to ask ourselves, what does ghetto mean? And how are we essentially associating ourselves with these urban communities? And why then are we taking the negative aspects of the ghetto and then automatically associating them with Black people? So we have to, number one, say that not all Black people are from the ghetto, right? But I guess the top is that a person cannot be ghetto. A ghetto, so I think I've addressed it. I'm not going to belabor the point.
Yeah, to clarify my question, and I think you answered it very well, but the word ghetto, it was just a word, but you can change that to why is there that all bad things, because that's what we're talking about, are associated with Black, and where did that come from? And so, yeah, that's more so where I wanted, not just the word ghetto by definition, but just overall. And since we're all talking about Black people, it's not other people putting that those things on us, it's us putting it on ourselves and on each other. And so that's why I wanted to know, as far as what's the history on that, because I didn't grow up here in the US, and so it's just fascinating to me to hear even about colorism. So I was just wondering, where did that come from? Was there a point of history or something that happened that's creating a ripple effect that we're seeing now?
Oh, good question. So yeah, so it came from after World War II with redlining. Black people were prevented from moving into certain areas, suburban areas, and they were relegated to certain closed, compact areas where they were forced to live in apartment buildings, where ultimately, perhaps maybe they were living on top of each other, where crime was higher. And after the return of our veterans from World War II, they had the VA bill. And the VA bill, or I think it was the VA bill, that would ultimately afford the returning veterans certain housing. Black veterans were not given that opportunity to take out these loans. And as a result, Black people were redlined, restricted to live in certain areas because, number one, they couldn't get the loan to live in the suburban areas. As Black people were moving in, white people were moving out. So that's why Black people were relegated to the quote unquote ghetto, living on top of each other. But an interesting point of history, those apartments in those highly ghetto areas, a lot of times the rent was more than the mortgage that the veterans would receive from that VA bill.
Joanne, did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Elliot, you had something to add?
My audio. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Good.
And I appreciate everybody's inputs. The question of ghetto came up, and I know originally the ghetto was where German people and especially concentrated Jewish people. So that term was carried over because when one group is trying to dominate another group, they'll force them into a certain area and also criminalize them, right? Make them, everything around them, stuff that you don't want to be, poverty, crime, neglect. And so that's something that was done to Black people. I think, and so to the extent that people are saying you're acting ghetto, it's not just that Black self-identify with poverty or criminality, is they know that they've been criminalized, certain people, and then they've been forced in situations in areas of poverty, and they still kind of embrace it. And then some, they know that they're not like just some dumb poor person, but they'll still speak the way people around them speak. And I think that kind of starts to allow for another possibility of what it means to be Black, because there's the idea that what it means to be Black, you can be Black in any way. And I appreciate that perspective, but there's always two sides to every coin. And I think there's a specific way to be Black, which means to care about the survival of Black people and Black culture and Black institutions. And we can see those things don't matter, but right now we're talking about ghettos and situations where white people have historically tried to oppress Black people, then reviving, embracing your culture is a Black thing, and it means something. So there's a lady earlier that was talking about witchcraft, and I think there's a way, I think that's a good example there. There's a way that witchcraft and voodoo and kind of has been treated as synonymous with evil. This stuff is all bad. And there is some people that's doing some kind of evil type magic and behavioral type, but part of it was when slaves came over, African slaves with Yoruba and Igbo religion, so like Ifa or other religions, that was blended with Christianity, and you had things like Santeria, right? And so, and then people said, oh, that's bad. And then the West generally said like, oh, your religions are bad because you want to break down the people. So to the extent that somebody goes back and says, let me learn about some kind of religions or culture that goes back to African culture, I think that's like, to me, that's undeniably Black. So I'm just saying, like, there's some things that like, we could say is you can be Black in many ways, but there is a certain Black history, culture, African history, African culture that that when you look at politically how it came about, is like because certain things happened to us. And I think us realizing that and coming together and realizing there's something special about where we come from. And yeah, I think that's good. It's important knowledge to acknowledge.
Thank you, Elliot. And Elliot, you have such a unique perspective because, again, we grew up right upstairs from each other. You're biracial, your father's from Africa. So, your view is a little bit different than the rest of us. because you've actually got a parent that's from the motherland, so you actually had to embrace the African culture that some of us didn't really have the opportunity to.
I'm not even talking about. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true. I think some of the I feel like I wish some of the stuff that was grounding us here was some of the stuff that Kara was talking about, like in history, certain being African American in this country, or being part of African colonialism in other places, right? There's an African diaspora where we borrow from Caribbean culture borrows from us, as well as going all around the world, but there's a real history here. So there's the idea of like everybody could be black, this and that. But it's like, nah, when we're talking about where this country's going, we're talking about the amount of people that are locked up, that are black men, right? Like we talk about black people, a lot of them moving out of cities right now, where you know, living in cities is important because you're close to work, and the trends that are happening. It's not just like it's not a choice, and there's things happening. So us getting in touch and tune with politics, history, back to Black history, which is American.
Yes.
Is
Yeah,
I don't want to talk everybody to death. So thanks for the opportunity to weigh in a little bit.
Thank you. Kamina had a question about colorism.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment about it because that's something else we kind of need to address within the Black community. This idea of lighter is better in some cases and darker is not, because I even personally had to like overcome that. And like, I took it from a negative perspective. I had a light-skinned friend that I grew up with, and I would be like, well, I know the guys are going to go to you because you're lighter. And what I found interesting is that as we talked about like darker men and lighter men, there was like negatives and positives on both sides. So as Joel was mentioning and as other people are mentioning, like we are each different. And in order for us to continue to live out our purpose, we need to be accepting of who we are and stop being people pleasers. Like we can't please everybody. God can't even do that. But like colorism, I think it hurts our community because my sister, she used to say, you're so dark, and it wasn't a positive thing coming out of her mouth. So like I even encourage like Black people loving themselves and loving each other. And I don't know if you guys heard of this term post-traumatic slave syndrome, but that's literally real. Like it's a book about it. I encourage you to read it and search it up, because when we think of our Blackness, sometimes we have self-hatred that may be unconscious. So I'm a teacher. I think of my students and how sometimes they may be angry at other students because they see a reflection of themselves. And that's why like I'm for mental health, I'm for counseling. So us as Black people, we can get the mental health we need so we can build up our families again. I also date a Caucasian man. He's like his family is from France, but I love him so much. But like, even in my family, like I would like shy away from like, I don't know if I might marry him because I don't know if it's gonna be accepted, but like being comfortable in who I am and the fact that the only thing that makes me Black is the fact that I was born Black. Like that just broke these chains of having a list of, you have to talk like this, you have to do this, like all of that. And then like that really put me in the middle. Like you talk white and then I couldn't fit in with the Black people. So like I'm literally in the middle feeling alone. And that's what I felt a lot of times like in my life. But yeah, just this idea of really loving the different shades of Blackness, loving the different shades of brown, really, because everybody is some shade of brown. So yeah, colorism is a thing, and post-traumatic slave syndrome. Look it up. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see who was next. I'm sorry, it's pulling up someone sent a question. Joanne, how do you feel about how Black people are represented in the media by Black people? Is that what you consider to be Black culture?
And if I may clarify my question
Sure.
too, because we're talking about, you know, Black people being categorized or being referred to as ghetto, depending on how we sound, or we sound white if we're trying to talk proper. But when I would watch a Black movie, that's all that's represented, you know? So for me, it felt like that was being normalized. That's what Black people do, especially from somebody who's coming from outside of the US, not knowing or not having any experience with African Americans. So if you're watching TV and that's all you see, so you think that, well, that's how Black people are, that's how African Americans are. And so how do you, so going back to the question, how do you feel that it's us Black people who are making those movies, right? And is that what we consider Black culture?
Well, have you ever seen a movie called Hollywood Shuffle with Robert Townsend?
I'm not good with movie name, maybe, I don't know.
Well, the reason that I ask is that he actually talked about that in this movie. He had a certain character, and the white directors would tell him, your character is not Black enough. Do this right like a Black man does it. So for a long time, you had white directors directing Black movies. A lot of the blaxploitation movies from the 70s were directed by white men. They weren't directed by Black people. So they created a narrative of what we were. And you have a lot of Black people that watch those movies growing up. You know, if you were born in the 70s, you wanted to be Shaft or Superfly because that's what you saw on TV. You know, if you were born in the 80s, you wanted to be Nino Brown from New Jack City, or you wanted to be Smokey from Friday. Now, fortunately, those last two are directed by Blacks, but you have a lot of movies that were directed by white America to tell us how we should act. So to answer your question, no, I don't agree with the way that we're portrayed because it shows us as one type of person.
And if I may be the devil's advocate, I mean,
sure,
we may be talking about maybe a long time ago, but right now we don't have a shortage of Black producers and Black actors and all of that, but that narrative is still being ongoing. That's really all you see. And so that maybe it's an excuse, maybe not, I don't know. But I feel like, I mean, especially now with BT, I mean, if you go to BT, that's all you're seeing. You're seeing, you know, how Black people are represented. It's just like, I don't know.
James, just for a second, can I just chime in for a moment, please?
Sure.
Oh, we have to keep in mind that, and I didn't know this, a lot of the television shows, and I think Tyler Perry brought this up, prior to him and Oprah creating their own network, those shows and the pilots and the movies, it had to be pre-authorized. So it was almost and we have to keep in mind who owns these conglomerations of television. It's typically Jewish people, right? And it's ultimately them perpetuating an image of what they think of us. So it wasn't until probably, I would say, within the last like maybe 10 years, or maybe even Oprah being more intentional prior to starting OWN, that she was taking hold of her image. So a lot of the things that we see, it's because, excuse my directness, but it was because a white person authorized it. So it's not like we really get to say like, hey, Black people, what do you want to see? Let's put this image forward. No, there are scripts that have to be approved. There are boards of directors that have to approve it. And even now, a lot of times, if you really think about it, and thankfully Tyler and Oprah, they have some type of, they have a voice because they own not just the network, but they actually own the set. And that's important. So we have to be mindful, and we have to intentionally reject anything that we don't accept because maybe we didn't authorize it.
All right, Derek, you were saying something?
Oh no, I was just saying. Somebody was talking about BET, and I was like, "Well, BET is not Black owned. It hasn't been Black owned in a very long time, if it ever has been. No, it's always owned by Viacom, right?
Yeah, Viacom. Yeah.
No, Johnson owned it first.
Yeah, Bob Johnson owned it, and he sold it. The story that I can remember is that he actually tried to find a certain number of Black investors. He couldn't find enough investors, and Viacom just blew everybody out of the water.
Right.
And that's why BET. But you have networks like Aspire, which is owned by Magic Johnson, and they show they show Black movies or Black shows that show Black people in a different light. But the problem is that these movies, they do exist. It's like positive hip hop. It exists, but it's a matter of what they promote and what they push. So, you know, it's, again, the representation of the media, I don't always agree with it. But unfortunately, there are people that act like those characters that are portrayed in these movies or shows. Unfortunately, now I don't know if it's an example of life imitating art or art imitating life, but these people do exist.
But thankfully, we have gotten better over the years. We're at a point now where we have a lot more better shows that show us in a much positive light. Insecure, that's a good one. See a lot of Black professional people working these professional jobs, being really successful. Still kind of messy, but for the most part, they're being really successful. You have a lot of shows like that. So I really do feel like we're moving to a more positive level, but we are still going to get the negative stereotype shows. Yeah.
Okay.
But surely we're getting past that. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Now I have two questions that I'm going to ask, and then I'll open it back up in case anyone else has a question while we have time. One of the things that I often hear with, especially Black men who date outside of their race or tend to date white women, the thing that I would always hear them called is a sellout. That term is thrown around so frequently. And I'm going to open this up to the panel. What exactly do you feel is a sellout in our community?
For me, a sellout would be somebody who, yes, they go out and date somebody of a different race, which is not even a big deal, but is what you do while you're in that relationship. When you put down, say if a Black man goes for a white woman or a Latina, whatever, or Asian, but when they go for that woman, they'll put down the Black female. I've noticed that a lot. That's when I feel like you're a sellout, in my opinion, because I'm like, why are you selling out Black women? They did nothing to you. But it's also the same for Black women who put down Black men and so on and so forth. So that's my definition.
I think a true sellout, when we look at history, there's something called the Fairmont Conference. And the Fairmont Conference during the Civil Rights Movement, it was a Republican Party intentionally trying to dismantle the Civil Rights Movement. And what they did was they offered book deals to like Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell and offers of position. And this came out because the owners of the Apollo, I believe, as the story was told, the owners of the Apollo were invited. And I guess people thought that they were ultimately had conservative views, and they thought that if they would have ascribed to, more or less, when I say dismantling the civil rights movement, they wanted to almost in a sense like vilify it, right? And during this conference, it was an exchange of notoriety for self versus, derailing the Black movement. So when I think of a sellout, I look at history. I look at how did you get this position? I look at someone like Clarence Thomas, who took the seat of Thurgood Marshall, right? And he really is just a color filler. But Clarence Thomas, I don't know why I'm stuttering tonight, sorry guys. Ultimately, he truly was an ultimate sellout is an ultimate sellout for the race. And yes, I said it as an attorney, when you look at some of his opinions and his positions on affirmative action, and he's there but for affirmative action. Sorry.
All right. Does anybody have anything else before I go to the next question? Anybody else have anything else to say about that one?
I mean, I agree with what Kara and Derek said, and just off of what Derek said too, I think the biggest thing is when one goes, I refuse to date my own race, and then they list all the negatives. And more often, unfortunately, I've heard it from Black males, and I always question it because I say, you're saying you don't love your mother, because a lot of them, unfortunately, were raised by single Black women, and yet they come up with a list of why they'll never date a Black woman. Like, you just have to be mindful because you were raised by a single Black woman, and now you're turning around saying that you don't like Black women because of all of these lists. And a lot of it is stereotypes we've been talking about how society sees Black women. And so, again, it goes down to when we talk negatively and put down our own brothers and sisters, which goes back to the colorism in all aspects of how quick it starts in our own community of what we say and how we talk about each other. And yet we get really upset when someone of a different race says it, but we think it's okay because we're of the same race. It's okay if I say it, but don't you dare say this. And that's another issue.
Al, it looks like getting ready to say something.
Yeah.
Okay,
a sellout to me is somebody who's successful and does not use that platform to look out for their own people. They when they see things going on like police brutality and abuse and things that's going on in our neighborhoods, they turn their heads. They don't speak up on it. So that's what a sellout to me is. As far as race, I don't have a problem with anybody else dating a white woman. I don't date white women. Never had. Not interested. I'm very pro-black. So, I'm about my people. But, some people have problems with it. I don't. Some people think that a white man will treat you better than a black man, and that's not true. A man is a man. It's because you go on the other side of the fence. He's still a man at the end of the day. So I mean, some women might feel that black men, they did a few black men, and they make it bad for the rest of us, the good black men, and they go to white men. But it's not always the case. You just have a bad experience with the guys that you date, or you just attracting the wrong type. You keep attracting the same type of men, and maybe you need to change a few things about yourself. Then you'll probably attract somebody different, and you won't have those issues. That's it.
Got it. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Anybody have anything else before I go to the next question? Okay. This question was actually texted to me. This is from a buddy of mine that's West Indian. And he wanted to know what it means to be black enough when you're from another country. That's an interesting one, because are you trying to fit into Black American culture? Are you trying to fit into Black global culture? Or is it trying to fit into what society tells you have to be? Joanne, I already see your hand up. So. Yeah, I saw you put your hand up.
I know, I was just like, man, that's a good question. So
would you like to answer it? I'm opening this one up to the panel.
Actually, I would like this to be answered from me too, because sometimes I ask the same question.
Okay. Joe, I think you had your hand up.
I had a question. This is totally unrelated to this one.
Okay. Well, does anyone have an answer on that one, that specific question, or what they think it's like, or where they think that people from other countries fit in? I'm sorry?
Ask the question again.
Oh, what does it mean to be black enough when you're a black person from another country? Are you trying to fit into Black American norms? Are you trying to fit into the global norms of being a black person, or are you trying to fit into certain societal norms?
I think we have to look at the core of what being black means. And it's literally you were born with a skin color. And if you're in America, because they've developed these racial constructs, you're black. So like when I think of black enough, that put me in this box and like mental battle with myself. Like I'm doing this and it's not black enough, So just embracing just who you are. I don't know if there's a list, or like I don't agree with the list, even if there was one, to say, hey, you're from this part of the country, you need to do X, Y, and Z to be black enough. No. And like Joel was also mentioning, we need to love each other in our community. We need to stop the self-hate. I do awareness walk. So I'll walk back and forth in my neighborhood with my sign, like Black Lives Matter. And a guy came up to me today and he was talking about so much hatred towards other black people in the black community. And then I kind of explained to him that me holding up this sign is a protest to my mind and saying that I am enough, I love myself, I matter, my family matters. So I wasn't focused on the political aspect of it. I was focused on the words, Black Lives Matter. So when we go to, are you black enough? Like, I don't think there's anything enough to be. You just are who you are. And just embracing that and not feeling like you have to check off boxes. Because if that was the case, and I used to make this joke, which is not good. My boyfriend checks off more quote unquote black boxes than me, because he grew up in the quote unquote hood, if you want to say it. So like even that to me is like, oh my gosh, that's not a good way to think about it. I'm just black because God made me black, and God made us who we are. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Did anyone else have anything on that subject?
I mean, I agree in the sense when I saw the flyer and you said the topic was, am I Black enough? Like I hesitated even being on the panel because I was like, what does that even mean? Like, am I Black enough? And so in my own experiences, and I can only speak to my experiences, I'm like, well, then I'm never Black enough because again, growing up, you know, you get certain Black people who say you're not Black, you're too white. And then you get white people who think, oh, you're so ghetto and you are Black. And there's like someone else, I think it was Kamina or whoever was speaking, like there's this middle ground or, oh, you're an Oreo, you're Black on the outside, but you're white on the inside. And it's like, well, who's defining what makes me Black? And like Kamina said, like, okay, I am Black and people look at me and say, you're Black because I was born with the color of my skin. And then there's a whole other level that me and my brother have had where it's like, I'm not even Black, I'm brown. So when you call me Black, what are you referring to? Because we all know that Black is something that we consider dirty. We're white, and we use the word white, that is considered something pure and beautiful. And so when we use the term white and Black, there's levels to that too, which I think we all need to be more conscious and aware of when we even use the word Black and call each other Black, because at the end of the day, I'm not Black. I'm African American and my skin is brown. And yet, am I Black enough? You're never going to be enough if you are comparing yourself and allowing someone else to tell you who you're supposed to be. I am enough because I am who God made me to be. So despite what anyone has to say, I am enough if I am seeking God every day and striving to be a better person for me. But regardless, I think that there's always going to be someone who says you're not enough in some context, and that's in their own expectations of what they expect you to be. And so are you allowing other people's expectations to be put on you of who you are daily, and what does that look like? Because at the end of the day, how we're talking about Black culture and all of those things, like there is a sense of Black culture from Africa and all these things that unfortunately there's a level that I think some of us probably aren't even aware of. There's a lot about our culture that I don't know in some sense because you're not taught it in schools, right? So if you're not doing the research for yourself, then do you know it? And so when we consider Black culture, and what Joanna is asking about what is Black culture in media is not all, but there is a group of people who describe you as Black based on what they see in the media and what they hear in songs. And they're striving to be that. And so at the end of the day, when you're striving to be the expectation of what society wants you, you're never going to be enough because those expectations change consistently and they're constantly changing. So what are you measuring yourself of? Am I enough? I am enough. I am enough today of what I can be. So despite what someone else tries to tell me, I know I was enough today. And it doesn't matter what that person has to say. But that comes from a lot of introspection, self-introspection of doing work to love me for who I was. And I have people who's pouring into you, and what are people pouring into you? You know what I mean? Are people constantly taking from you and you're surrounding yourself with people who just judge you and tell you you're not enough? And if you don't have a core group that is pouring into you to make you better, and it doesn't mean they agree with whatever you say. I've got a small group of women that at the end of the day, you're going to call me on my shit and you're going to make me better. But at the end of the day, you're pouring into me. And how are you calling me on my shit? And what are you saying? And that's a whole nother aspect of like, who's your circle? Are they pouring from you or are they constantly taking from you? Because if they're constantly taking and draining you and they're speaking negativity, well, then your whole self-image is negativity and you're never going to be happy and you're never going to think you're enough.
Thank you, thank you. Now, Kara, I saw that you had your hand up. I think that I missed you. I'm sorry. Your mic's out again.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, now you're back out.
Okay. All right, I won't touch it again. All right, really quickly, because did we have the opportunity just to reject the notion of being dichotomized to Black versus white? Because, and I like what Amira Baraka wrote under the pseudonym Leroy Griffin. He's the mayor, or the father of Newark's mayor, Ras Baraka. He wrote a book called Blues People, and he talked about that Black people of color with pigmentation changed how they associated themselves, from like the Negro to the Africana, from the Africana to the Negro to Black. And I think currently today we're all considered Black, but we have the ability to reject, quote unquote, being all categorized the same, because we're different. My blackness is my blackness, how I define it. But I like to say I'm a person, right? I love being black, don't get me wrong. But for us in 2020 to all ascribe to being black or one type of black, we have to reject that at some point. My black is different. I think I like being called black. You know, perhaps maybe someone doesn't like being called black. That's their prerogative. Maybe someone wants to be called African American. But I would love for all, you know, I mean, I know you can't do it in the next minute or so, but I personally, Kara Cherie Buford, rejects being categorized in one particular overly generalized group considered black, because we can't all ascribe to that one blackness, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. That's the one thing that I think that we can all agree after this call. When it comes to the question of, am I black enough? Yes. Whatever you are is black enough. Whatever life you live, that's black enough. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not the epitome of blackness or that you're not black enough, because you are. You represent what black people are. And I want everyone here to remember that. All right, it's 10 o'clock. I'm trying to stick with my deadlines. If you all want, we can continue this conversation next week. I'm going to open up my email address for those that don't have it. It's fall2risepod@gmail.com. I'm going to put it in the chat so that everyone can see it. I'm working on the social media page. I had it, but I had some issues with it today. There will be a social media page up. Please email that group. I'll update all of the information. Hang on 1 second. All right, Joe, I'll take your question as we're heading out. Joe?
You want me to say it, or?
Yeah, you can say it.
You can say it. All right. First, I want to thank the guests, man. Y'all were great. I really appreciated everybody's input. I just was curious to see if you all, I think Kara kind of touched on this a little bit, but do you believe there's a difference between black, African American, or a person of color? And if so, which group do you all identify as?
I guess that's for anyone who wants to answer it.
That's for the guests that.
Oh, for the guests? Okay, good.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's a difference. Me personally, I think we're all one.
Okay.
I think where the confusion comes in is
because some of us were brought from other places, and I think that we're a little confused about our culture at times because of how things happened in the past. But I think that we're all one. I don't think there's a difference between, no matter what walk of life you come from, whether you come from over here, over there. We all black people. We all African American. We all come from the same descendants. So I don't think there's a difference in that.
All right. For the panel?
To be honest, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'm black, sometimes I'm African American, sometimes I'm a woman of color. I mean that so, so sincerely. Like, it depends. Like, I mean, because at the end of the day, it doesn't change who I am. I think it's a point of preference.
Okay. Derek?
I usually just say I'm Black American a lot of the time. I relate more to just being Black American than African American. And I do agree with what Corey said. Yeah, we're definitely all from the same location and everything. But for me, it's like I connect more with just being Black in America rather than African, because I don't know, it's like our cultures are so different. And granted, we could probably blend that in, but I just say I'm Black American.
Okay. Jewel?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I think sometimes it depends on the mood. I think sometimes I honestly don't even think about it. I go, I'm Jewel. Like when I come against people and clients are like, well, what are you? I go, I'm human. It's like, no, you know what I mean? And so again, I think kind of like what Kara was saying, like it depends on your mood and what you think of it. But at the end of the day, like she said, none of it defines me. I am Jewel Lynn Nelson, and I am who I am despite the color of my skin or what someone else wants to call me. And so it also kind of depends, I guess, how people use that term. Being in a therapist and meeting clients and listening to how other therapists talk about Black people or African American, I would jump in and correct them very clearly of how they label and talk to us, even being in schools. And so I think there's just so many layers, and I know we have to go. So it's more so when someone calls you that, how are they saying it and what is the context, and like correcting people of what do they mean when they call you that and what comes with it. And just educating them of like, and that's, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that answer. And thank you all. Quick question. I'm going to do a quick poll. Show of hands, who wants to do a part 2 next week of this episode? Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? No? Okay, so that's a no for Kara.
I mean, I'm open to it. I'm not against it.
Open.
Okay. No, I mean, if you don't, it's all right. I mean, I have another subject lined up. So if you want to do another one next week or part 2, to give you a chance to come up with more questions or comments, let me know. So let me just take a poll. Who's in favor of it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all opposed? 1. I can only see a couple of the faces. All right, so we'll do another subject next week. But what I'll do is I'll open it up on the through email. Please feel free to email me. The email is in the chat. And we also have a YouTube channel now, finally.
Oh, snap.
Fall to Rise podcast YouTube channel. So if you go on there, you can actually see the videos. When this one's done tonight, I'll upload it. And feel free to submit comments and please subscribe. We're going to put a lot more things on there. And as always, if you have any ideas that you'd like me to cover, please let me know. The next episode is going to be being Black in the legal system. That's next week. You're still on for next week, right? Being Black in the legal system.
Yes.
Okay. So Kara's back next week. Being Black in the legal system. And she's going to break that. I'm sorry.
So this segment is going to be episode 2 in Black and Legal System merged next week?
Well, we didn't have a consensus on people that wanted there to be a part 2.
Okay.
We didn't have enough people.
I follow now. I'll do.
Yeah, but again, the email is still open. The social media page will be up by tomorrow. Once everyone emails me, the social media pages will be up, so we'll be able to continue the conversation on the social media pages. And the week after Kara, that episode is Breaking Generational Curses.
Ooh.
Okay.
So I've got the next 20 weeks planned out.
I'm gonna bring some vodka that day. Shoot.
But once again, thank you. I want to thank all the guests. Malik, who's no longer on. I think her phone died. Antoine, Jewel, Kara, Derek. Thank you all so much for being candid, for your honesty, for your knowledge, and thank you all for watching. I really, really appreciate it. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, if you have me on Facebook, send me a message. I'm at James Brown. If you want to email me, falltorisepod@gmail.com. Or again, go to the Fall to Rise podcast YouTube channel. You can submit comments there. And again, please subscribe. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. All right, thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Good night. Good night.